Hold up, I am on my way, I'm in motion. Let's go to the ocean. Yeah, let's go outside. We can hang out on the beach without freezing.
Welcome to Crafty Beach. This is Julie. Today I have 20 Fairy Garden Dollar Tree DIYs for you for spring. For this DIY, I'm going to use a Dollar Tree pot. I picked up the one that kind of looks like a wooden bucket. And what I want to do is make this into a big fairy garden that I can put in my landscaping outside. So, the local fairies can use it and all. I thought it would be fun to try to do that because the fairy garden section also has the doors and the windows now. So I thought I could take the door and the window set, add it to the pot. The fact that it looks like a wooden barrel, I think kind of goes with the look of a fairy house, a fairy garden house. And so let's see what we can do with these. These are made out of ceramic material, and I want to glue them to that little pot. The pot itself is plastic. So I was thinking I'm probably going to need a stronger glue than I normally use. So I'm using some Gorilla Glue. And I'm going to combine that with hot glue so that I can get it on there quickly, but it's going to glue on stronger because I'm going to put this outside in my landscaping, so I want it to be able to hold up, right? So I'm going to have my door like that, flush with the bottom of it when it's upside down, just like that. And it's flat on the back, and of course the surface is rounded, but it's a pretty good area to contact. The most contact is down here on the bottom, so that's where I'm going to put the Gorilla Glue, and then I put hot glue up here on the top to glue it into place at least temporarily. And there is a little bit of gap around the arch of the door there, as you see, and I'll show you how I go about filling that up. It's also a fun way to decorate this giant fairy house. And I'm going to do the same thing on the windows. I'm going to do half of it with the Gorilla Glue and half of it with the Gorilla Glue hot glue. For the windows, I decided to offset them a little bit. This one I did almost all the way over on the side of the barrel, and this one I'm going to do a little closer to the front door just because I kind of like the asymmetrical look, especially because I want to do something kind of asymmetrical to decorate this fairy garden house. So this is what it looks like so far. We've got the door, we've got the two windows. The top of it is the bottom of that pot, so it has all those holes in it and everything. I thought the easiest way to make a roof would be to do a stone roof. So I'm going to use some of those little stones from the Dollar Tree and cover the roof. It's going to cover all of the holes and all this area up here, and it's going to give it that great fairy garden house look. I just start with hot glue. I do go in and reinforce it with some stronger glue because this is probably not going to hold up outside here in Florida. But I did get a good start with the hot glue, and it's definitely easier because it dries quicker. But I just go around the edges with these, and I'm just trying to lay them down, trying to find the flat surface so I can make as much contact as I can with the pot there to glue those down. Another option to cover the roof, you could use the reindeer moss to cover the roof, but I have another idea for that on this project, so I thought stones on the roof would be perfect. So I just worked my way all the way around, and then for the inside, I just put half of it with hot glue down, put the pebbles down inside, and then did the same thing here on the other side. Now, I do want to make sure everything is secure, and I kind of want to build it up a little bit. Not necessarily a second layer of pebbles, but every knot here and there, I'm just going to make it a little bit taller, make it look a little bit more random. And I want to try to cover up a lot of those gaps where you could see the plastic behind it and stuff like that. So I just go around with some more and just add some pebbles to it until I am happy with it. I love the colors of these stones. I think they're really pretty, and they're totally going to go with the aesthetic look that I was going for this little fairy garden house. And then I went in with the Gorilla Glue, and I tried to glue these on a little bit better. They're on the top, so that's going to help a little bit. It's not like they're trying to defy gravity like the doors and the windows. And then I'm going to go in here and fill up the gaps. Any gaps that you can see between the rocks. I don't want to be able to see any of the plastic pot. I'm just using some of that brown floral moss and some hot glue and just going in and filling those in. It gives it a fun little forest quality, and it also serves the purpose by filling in all of those gaps between the rocks. That way I don't have to keep building with them. I think that's enough to cover the top of it. And it gives it a cool stone roof look. And I did the brown floral moss just to kind of mix it up a little bit, but you could use whatever you have. I wanted this to be like lots of browns and greens on this little house. Now to cover the gap around the door, it's already got like a mossy look there on top. So I'm gonna continue that on with the reindeer moss from the Dollar Tree. So that's gonna fill in that gap perfectly, make it look like it's intentional and that it's not sticking out like that. And I go all the way around the arch of the door, just attaching that with hot glue. You could always use some stronger glue for that if you wanted to, but hot glue and something really light like this, I think should work well. Then I'm going to continue it on, at least on one side. So this is the side that I made the window a little closer. And I'm going to continue that reindeer moss on, making it look like moss has grown, but like only on this side of the house. And I want it to kind of be like evenly kind of arched over that window, going all the way up to the roof and then kind of coming down the other side of the window. It's not super curved like I want it, so I'm going to add a little bit more here to finish off the look I was going for. And I think this gave it a really cool vibe. And this is so fun. I'm going to set this out in my landscaping. I think it looks so cute. I'm going to use some of these like little wood ornament slices from the Dollar Tree. I think these are going to be perfect stepping stones. I can put these like in my mulch as little stepping stones, like leading out to it, kind of like this. And I think that will be so fun. Isn't this so cute? Our little fairy garden house made out of a Dollar Tree pot and a couple items that I found there from the Dollar Tree. This is probably your all's favorite fairy garden Dollar Tree DIY I've ever done. I've seen lots of you guys recreate this one, and it's always a fan favorite. The only problems I had with this fairy garden is the moss. I don't know if an animal started pulling mine off or if it was just the hot glue failing, so you might need a stronger glue for that. If you're enjoying today's video, be sure to hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, and I would really appreciate it if you would hype today's video. For the next DIY, I wanted to see if I could use one of these new leaf trays from the Dollar Tree. I thought this would be fun to do an indoor fairy garden that would look great like on a table as a centerpiece or something like that. I wanted to do a little bit of a fairy garden farm feel on this one. So I got this little brown house that I think would go with the vibe. I think I'll add that right about there. I'm going to do it facing one direction. I think it's going to look a little bit better that way. And then I also got a little farm pond here with some cute little ducks that we can add to it. And then I found these little butterfly chairs from the Dollar Tree the other day in the fairy garden section. I think they're so cute. And I'm going to pair that with a fairy. I want the fairy to be sitting by the pond, enjoying the yard that we're going to make here in this leaf. And this actually worked out really well. I wasn't sure what to do with this tray, how to decorate it, but I think this is going to be really cute. I can have little fairies sitting like this, and we can make a great little centerpiece indoor fairy garden. I do want to tack mine down with some hot glue just so they don't move around too much. So I hot glued down my house. I'm also going to hot glue the pond, kind of like it going that way together. It's kind of got an interesting shape. And then the little chair, I'm definitely going to have to glue that so it doesn't fall over every time somebody touches the table. And the fairies don't fit really well in these chairs, not as well as I thought they would be since they're from the same line at the Dollar Tree. So you definitely have to hot glue the little fairy on to the chair. Unless, of course, I guess you're going to be playing with them. And then I'm going to put like the little baby maybe in the water and the older one on the shore. So I'm going to go ahead and glue that one to the water so it stays in place. And then I'm going to add reindeer moss for the greenery. It's not a very deep tray. I know a lot of you guys have told me you've seen these at the Dollar Tree. They're so cute. They're such high quality for $1.25. They're made out of almost like a wood resin material. And I'm just going to take little pieces of the reindeer moss and fill it out really everywhere where there is a little bit of an opening, where I want it to look like a yard. And I love using reindeer moss for grass in my fairy gardens. I do have a project coming up today with the faux grass they have right now for Easter that can work as well. It's going to give you a totally different look though. So this is the regular reindeer moss. I think that looks really cute. We can put the little duck over here. And now it needs some spring florals for the spring vibes on this. I'm going to use some of these flowers. These are the Tweedia. They're small flowers. They're not the smallest they have, but they're white and yellow. I think they look really cute with the color scheme we have going on, and the white tray, it blends really well together. So you just pull those off. They have tiny stems on them that you can glue into the moss. And then I'm also going to use some I have in yellow. So I love the yellow and white color scheme for this. I think it's going to be really bright and cheerful for spring. And again, I just add a little dot of hot glue to the stem of those, gluing those down into the moss just so they stay in place. This was such an easy fairy garden. I think it's going to look great for a centerpiece on my table for spring. I'm trying to get as many spring decor as I can in my house. I think it is a fun season to decorate with for sure. This is my tray with the indoor, I guess you could do outdoor too, little farm fairy garden. So cute. What I did is I displayed this on my coffee table. It was nice and low. Didn't really interfere with anything, like being able to see the TV or anything like that. And it was so cute and festive for spring. What do you guys think about this one? I decided to get really creative, and I thought, why can't I do like a vertical fairy garden that you can hang on the wall? So I'm going to use one of the little wood slice signs from the Dollar Tree for that. I thought that looked fairy garden-esque because it looks like a slice of wood. The hanger is kind of long on mine, but I'm going to kind of go with it. I just kind of trimmed off some of the fraying. For the sky, I'm going to use this cloudless acrylic. I get this on Amazon, and I do have it linked in my shop below. It's only like 50 or 60 cents, and you can get it shipped free with Prime. So love that color. And I just used a sponge, and I just did a very light stain for the sky. Now for the items, I was trying to think of things that were kind of flat that I could use on it since we're doing a vertical fairy garden. And I thought this welcome sign that comes with the bridge would be perfect for it because it's kind of flat. It's kind of got a back to the sign like that where I can glue it to it. And then I'm going to use one of the fairies that came in the fairy pack. She's super cute. We can stand her over here. She's kind of doing the Home Alone face thing. The little spigot that came in the garden pack, we can put that on there. That's kind of flat. I'm definitely looking for things that are not too bulky. And then the little bush with the flowers that we had left over from earlier from one of the fairy garden packages. And it's just a matter of kind of lining them up. I think 4 items is going to be plenty. And I just kind of have to decide exactly how I want them on there. Since I am definitely hanging it on the wall, I definitely have to glue these guys down. So I just do a bead of hot glue along the back. So I'm going to glue like the spigot here. And then we're going to be doing like the moss and the flowers and stuff along the bottom. So I thought this was a really creative way to bring a fairy garden to the wall. So I'm going to glue my fairy down next. I don't want it to be like too evenly spaced out. I want it to be kind of random. So I'm going to do my welcome sign next. That was probably the heaviest piece, so I'm going to make sure to glue that down well. But definitely you're going to have to be careful what kind of pieces you're going to use if you're going to do a vertical fairy garden like this. Now for the grass, we're going to be using the reindeer moss again. I'm going to kind of leave it more clumped this time. That's going to kind of work well for this. And I'm going to glue it down to provide the grass for the bottom of the fairy garden. And since I'm leaving it in a big clump like that, like one piece can kind of cover like a whole lot. I do make sure to glue it all securely down though, so that it doesn't fall off. Another clump right here, and I'm going to kind of continue that across until it's full. I'm trying to make sure you can't see any of the wood through it, that it's going to look like a solid surface for the bottom. And I'm so glad I had this idea because I think this turned out so cute. And a very creative way to do a fairy garden for indoors. But you know what? You could hang this outdoors as well, too, if you had like a porch or something like that, and a perfect place to hang it. I'm going to go ahead and glue a little bit more. I had a few areas that looked a little bit thinner, and I want it to be thick enough to go under like the base of the signs and stuff like that. So they're like not like completely suspended out there over nothing. That looks pretty good. And now we can decorate our little meadow with flowers. I'm going to be using the white flowers here from the spike. And since it's a wall decor, I am going to glue them in instead of just sitting them in there to make sure that they stay nicely. I'm going to do like one of the pink baby's breath. We'll glue that into the moss right over here. And again, I don't want to overwhelm it too much with decorations. I want it to look like a simple little fairy garden. And then I thought a few mushrooms would be cute. I was also able to find the little mushrooms in this blue color. So I'm kind of going a little bit more colorful with this one. These are the very tiny ones. And I'm going to cut the wire and attach that as well to provide another little decor piece. It's looking really cute. I thought the sky looked a little bit plain, just being a solid blue. And so I am going to decorate that a little bit with just a white paint pen. Doing clouds is super easy. I'm just using my Posca paint pen, and I'm just basically like painting circles, kind of putting them all together, kind of like more like oval shapes. And we're just going to scatter a few clouds here across the top of the sky just to provide a little bit more fun. Nothing crazy, just like 3 clouds across the sky. And this is how it turned out, our little hanging fairy garden. I think it's so cute. I thought the hanger looked a little plain, so I decided to add a little color to that with some of this spring ribbon from the Dollar Tree. This is like the pink with the white flowers on it. And I'm just going to tie that to the very top of my hanger. And I'm going to tie a very simple little bow here on the top just to provide like a little pop of color up there and give it a little spring fun as well. So it's just a matter of trying to tie this evenly, get a few tails that aren't too long, and kind of trim those up. Just a little pop of color up there. And I'm glad I added that because I think it really made it look cute here in the end. So there is the final result of our hanging fairy garden. Very unique and a great way to display a fairy garden. If you have kind of a weird space, you could hang this on the wall indoors or outdoors for spring or summer. And I think it turned out really cute. Any chance I have to be able to use the little fairy garden items from the Dollar Tree, I'm going to jump at the chance. They are so cute. I wanted to see if I can make a fairy garden wreath. So I'm going to use one of the foam wreath forms from the Dollar Tree and one of their fairy garden houses. I chose this one because it was the thinnest one from front to back, so I thought it would work well here on a wreath. I'm just going to use a Sharpie to kind of measure out where that's going to be, and I started carving like a little opening to sit it in. Now, a knife might be a little faster than this. I was trying to not cut too deeply though, so I'm using one of those foam cutters there from the Dollar Tree, one of the fun noodle cutters. Those work really good for foam in general. This foam though is pretty sealed, so it takes a little bit of carving. And so I just carved that out, but I also want it to be fairly flat so that I will be able to glue the house in there easily. I don't want it to fall out or anything like that. It's not super heavy, so I think it's going to be okay. Maybe a few more trims here in the middle so I have more area to contact with it. That looks pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and add some hot glue, and I'm going to sit it in there sort of centering it where it sticks out as far in the front as it does in the back, which isn't very much with this cute little house. How cute is this, right? And I like the fact the colors are not super bright on this, but we're going to add all kinds of fun spring to this. While it's drying, I went ahead and added some hot glue to the front and the back to seal those in. Definitely giving this time, letting the hot glue set up. And I went over it with a little bit more too on the front, and then I'm also going to do it on the sides. You won't be able to see that in the end, but I think it's really important to go ahead and attach your house first like this, and carving the little opening for it made that so much easier to get contact and let that hot glue dry. Now for the fun part, we're going to cover the entire wreath with reindeer moss from the Dollar Tree. And I want to cover everything you're going to be able to see. So I'm going to cover the front, the outside, the inside of it. And I'm just using hot glue. I've seen other people use tacky glue to attach their moss, and I guess that would work. It might be a little bit more durable outside, but I've had really good luck with the hot glue and the reindeer moss, using it even on outdoor wreaths. I'm going to use this probably as an indoor wreath just because it's kind of small, but I think it'd be really cute on a front porch as well, right? And I'm just tearing the moss into pieces that are fairly flat so I can add it on there. I like the little bit of variety in color. I've noticed some of my packages are a little bit brighter than the others, but I am not going to be mixing any other kind of moss in it today. I'm just going to be doing the reindeer moss, at least for this fairy garden project. So I just worked my way around. I wish that Dollar Tree had a larger foam wreath form like this, with people talking about a price increase at Dollar Tree. Hopefully they will get bigger ones. But it's a cute size, and it works really well for a wreath for a door in your house. I have one this size to my guest room on a little command hook, and it looks really cute on an indoor door. I just go all the way around. That looks pretty good for the first round. And then I found it was a little bit easier just to turn it over to do the outer edge and to do the inside. I really don't have much to add here, but I want to make sure that even from the sides, you're not going to be able to see any of that green foam through. And the fact that the wreath form itself is green does help. If you can see in between any of the moss, it'll all kind of blend in together with the green, right? And what I want to do is give this like fairy garden vibe. So we already have the fairy garden house. We have all of this great reindeer moss, and then I want to add a few other touches to give it the fairy garden feel. I'm not going to be adding any actual fairies to this DIY, but maybe she's home in her house, right? And maybe a little bit here on the inside just to make sure that you can't see any of that green. And this part of the wreath is almost complete. That looks pretty good. Now it's time to decorate this. Before I get too much further though, I do want to go ahead and make a hanger. I'm just going to use a piece of twine, really easy. I'm going to feed that through the moss and just knot it here at the top. Super easy way to hang this without really interfering much with the fairy garden feel of this. The twine matches in well with the moss. Okay, now for the other fairy garden I'm going to add to this, I'm going to add a little welcome sign. I think they have a couple different varieties of these. I think it's a great scale for this, and I can put it on the side like this. I wanted to add at least one more fairy garden piece to this to give it that fairy garden feel, but I want to decorate a lot of it with spring florals and items that really remind me of spring. So I just attached that with hot glue to the moss, pushing it back far enough so it does get contact with the foam wreath form too. And I wanted some yellow flowers, and I didn't really have any tiny ones from the Dollar Tree, but this greenery from the Dollar Tree did have a little yellow flower at the very end. And so I'm just going to snip those off, adding a little hot glue to the stem and gluing those down into the moss. They're not super bright, but they're the right scale. And then off this greenery with the onion grass, these have butterflies on them, and I thought a butterfly would be a great touch for this. So mine's a little bent up. I'm gonna give mine a quick iron with my heat gun and attach this to it as well. It's so pretty. Look at the colors. I think these have gotten a lot better because I've bought these on the onion grass in the past at Dollar Tree, and they weren't quite this pretty and detailed as that butterfly. I really love it. Then for flowers, I'm going to use these little tiny flowers from the Dollar Tree. These are pink. The great thing about these, there's double petals on there, and there's a little notch on the top and a notch on the bottom. So if you just snip them off, they are going to stay on there, but I'm leaving a little bit of a stem on there because I can add some hot glue to glue that down into the moss. And I just scatter those all over. I thought some baby's breath would be really pretty too, but this is kind of a smaller scale wreath, so I'm gonna actually cut the baby's breath into individual branches and add them separately like this, So just adding a dot of hot glue to the end of each one of these and adding these to the wreath. Now, have you guys ever seen there's like a hot glue well that you can put hot glue in where you can like dip items into it? I've often wondered if I should get one of those for crafting. If you guys have one, let me know. I think that would be a fun thing where you can just dip items into and add them with hot glue. It'd be a little bit easier than using my hot glue gun for this. But I want to scatter these all over. I think that gives it a really pretty vibe. And this DIY was so easy to make. A little fairy garden wreath for spring. And it's so decorative, it makes up for the size of it being a little bit smaller. It's so pretty that you could definitely hang this on your front door for spring and or summer. Very cute. I absolutely love like the combination of the moss and the flowers. Add a little fairy garden house and especially the little butterfly on there as well. For this one, I'm going to make like a little miniature fairy garden, and this one's going to have an Easter theme. I'm going to start off with one of these little wood trays from the Dollar Tree. I think these are really fun. I don't think I've ever used one before. They have a couple different styles of these little trays from the Dollar Tree now. They have like the edges that are different patterns. I'm just going to give mine a quick stain with some Antique Wax by Waverly on the outside of the little box and wipe off the excess with a baby wipe, giving me like a medium stain just so it's a little bit more finished. I wanted to do like a little Easter theme on this one. And so I'm going to combine some fairy garden items from the Dollar Tree, but also some little Easter items that I found. I want to do like some little Easter bunnies in there, some little Easter eggs, and even some carrots. Now, they do have little carrot erasers similar to the little bunnies that you see there. And they also have little mini carrots from the Dollar Tree that you can use. But I'm going to actually use some fairy garden carrots that I found. So I am just staining the inside. And I did have to use my finger sander just because it was cut well, but it was a little splintery along the edges. Now, instead of moss on this one, I thought it would be fun to use some of the Easter grass from Dollar Tree. This is from the Dollar Tree Plus. It's like $5 a roll. I love it for crafting. I'm just going to cut out a square of it big enough to fit in the inside of this little box. Now, one thing about this is when you cut it, you can see like the little black mat that the grass is attached to. So I always like to go around and try to trim that off as much as possible if I can. And then I'm just going to attach the grass to the bottom with a little bit of hot glue. So this is kind of a smaller size fairy garden, but I love the fact that it has a theme. The corners weren't super rounded, so I just put some hot glue down. And as you can see, it likes to shed when you cut it, and just use the excess grass to fill in my corners. Now, these are the fairy garden items I found to use for it. This one with the little gate also has the carrots. And then I got a little miniature bench. And this is like the smaller scale fairy garden stuff from the Dollar Tree, I would say, compared to some of the newer big stuff. I'm just going to attach the little spring bench here to the back, hot gluing it to the grass. And then I also have like one of their little welcome signs for the fairy garden, also kind of on the smaller scale since this is going to be such a small little tray. This is the Easter bunnies I picked out. They're the little erasers from Dollar Tree. I thought they would be perfect miniatures. Sometimes these can be a little difficult to hot glue, but since I'm adding them to the grass, I think it's going to work. And then these are the little carrots that I was talking about that were part of the fairy garden. So I thought these would be perfect for the little bunnies. I'm going to use this little fairy garden indoors. And so I'm just kind of hot gluing everything down. And of course, it doesn't need to be able to drain or anything like that, but you could always modify it as needed. I thought 2 little Easter bunnies would be plenty. I was trying to decide if he should stand on the bench, but I think he should stand in the grass. So I'm going to put one back here, one a little closer to the carrots. And this was a fun idea. We're also going to do a little one with a St. Patrick's Day theme. I thought it would be fun to do a couple spring themes on some of these tier trays today. For the flowers, I'm going to use some of the pink and yellow flowers from the Dollar Tree, some of the small ones here. Just cutting off individual flowers, leaving a little bit of a stem on them and attaching them with hot glue. We can put some flowers in the corner. I don't want to overpower it too much because I do want to set it up to make it look like an Easter egg hunt. To do that, I'm going to use just some jelly beans that I picked up from the Dollar Tree. Now, mine's going to be indoors, so I think it'll be fine to have jelly beans in this. I'm not going to glue them down, so I can remove them after Easter's over. If you wanted a more outdoor version, they also have those little miniature wooden eggs with the Easter section at Dollar Tree. You could always paint some of those. But I'm going to scatter them into the grass like that, like there is an Easter egg hunt. A very whimsical little Easter fairy garden. I think it's so fun. So don't be afraid to theme your fairy garden. You can do something really cute like this for Easter. I think it's really fun. I also have a St. Patrick's Day version of this DIY coming up as well, which is really fun and whimsical. Isn't that so cute? I love anytime I can use like miniatures of things. For the next one, I'm always trying to find creative items to use at the Dollar Tree, right? I picked up one of these dustpans from the Dollar Tree because I thought this would give me the look I was going for on this fairy garden, where I can make it look like there's a door going into a grassy hill. So that's my plan with this one. I thought the shape of the little dustpan would be perfect. It does have a little plastic cup that was covering the opening here on the top. That was like a temporary cover, but I don't want anything to get in here, so I'm just going to reattach that with a little bit of hot glue. And I want to cover the entire thing with some of this faux grass from the Dollar Tree Plus section for Easter. I love using this stuff. It's so fun to craft with. I wanted to cover the entire back wall like that and to go over to look like a little grassy hill. So I cut off a piece that's large enough to do that. And then the challenge is how to make this work with it needing to go on the bottom, the sides, the outside. I'm going to try to frame this around like this. And I wanted to cover the back as well here. So I am going to start by attaching it to the back here of the little dustpan with hot glue. And this is one of the dustpans that I guess that you put the little broom handle into. I am just using that bottom piece there from the Dollar Tree. I hot glue that to the bottom. It doesn't have to go all the way flush with the bottom. I'm going to use this fairy garden outside, and I want to put it in with my landscaping to make it really look like it goes with the landscaping, so make it look like grass. I put some hot glue on the inside of the lip like that, gluing that down and curving the grass around. Now to do the sides, I am going to have to do some cutting to make this work. There's going to be just too much of the grass fabric. So I cut it where I can make it go exactly where I want it to go, basically cutting the bottom section. I'm going to attach that first with a little bit of hot glue here, pushing it back so it goes straight up to that back. That's where I'm going to have our little fairy garden door. And then I wrap it around here. I want it to kind of make sense. I think that is going to work like that. And so I do have too much material here. I'm going to cut down a little triangle out of that so I have enough for the wall, and then I can have it wrap around the side like that. So it was a little challenging to get this to fit such a crazy shape, but we're going to make it work. And I'm going to save those pieces that I trim off to cover the rest of the bottom of it, so I don't have to waste too much of the artificial grass. I do the same thing here on the other side, just cutting out a triangle and hot gluing that to the side, and it's doing a really good job of keeping that shape. Now I was pulling and tugging on this so much that I pulled this off a little bit, so definitely make sure you give your hot glue some time to set up there. Here on the back, I'm going to have the same issue working around this area, probably a little bit too much of the grass. So I'm going to cut it right about there, pull this tight, see how much extra grass I have, and then I can trim that off as well. So a little square or a rectangle on both sides, I guess. And I'm going to pull this tight. A little bit of the grass is going to be on the bottom, but it worked. And again, I pull it tight. As you can see, that faux grass from the Dollar Tree has a black lining like that that can be a little bit visible. So whenever you cut and work with it, you're going to want to hide that a little bit to make it blend in with the grass. But that looks pretty good so far. I do want to cover the entire rest of it with grass so it can have a grassy lawn here as well for the little fairy. And so just using my scrap pieces that I just trimmed off, I'm going to put them together a little bit like a puzzle. I'm going to be decorating this with lots of things, so it definitely doesn't have to be perfect. But if there's too much black sticking out around the edges, I just go in and trim that off and just piecing it all together to cover the rest of it. And who would know that that was a little dustpan? In the end, the shape worked out exactly like I thought it would. Now I do have a little piece, a little parts here where you can see some of the black through. I'm going to use a few more of those scrap pieces to patch it together, just to try to cover up any of the black, make it look really nice. I think that looks pretty good. This is the fairy garden door that I got. It is probably the medium size. It's not the real big ones that are freestanding. This one comes in a package like this, and it's a perfect height for this project. I'm going to attach it to the faux grass with some hot glue here. And maybe now you can see my vision a little bit, where I want the fairy garden door to lead into a grassy hill like the fairy garden house is underground. Now to decorate the yard, I'm going to use one of the little fairy garden chairs with the flower on there. It's got a pink flower. The door has pink accents on there as well, and a pink door. So I wanted to use a lot of pink items on this. I think it looks great with the green. This is the fairy that I'm going to use for this one. She's got a green skirt, pink wings, very cute. She doesn't fit in the chair very well, but I think I can hot glue her in there and make that work. And I want her to be sitting in front of her little fairy garden. I thought it would give her a nice fountain for the yard as well. It's not a super big fairy garden, but there is room for little pieces like this. I found a little welcome sign from a package for the fairy garden at the Dollar Tree, and a little sidewalk that looks like it's made out of wood, like a little deck that we can have go all the way back to the doorway. I do want to hot glue these down so they will stay in place, so I glue the little welcome sign, the little chair here over in the corner of her yard where she's going to be sitting in it. Really, you can only put some hot glue right there on the corner and have her sit almost on the edge of the seat to make her fit. And I tried the other fairy as well. Neither one of them fit in there very well. And then I'm going to have the fountain directly in the front of her house and the sidewalk leading out to it. I want to do some gravel on this too, to make a little road and, landscape out our area. I attached my walkway with hot glue as well. This is what it looks like so far with the fairy garden items from the Dollar Tree. I'm actually going to use bath salt from the Dollar Tree for the gravel, just because I found that it was about the right size. It's white. It smells nice. And I am going to put that on the sides of the sidewalk too, to make it look like her yard is landscaped. And it goes out to the little fountain directly in the front of her house, where I thought I would go all the way around, do like a little roundabout here in front of her house. And I can even do a road with this bath salt as well for gravel. You could also use the little white pebbles from the Dollar Tree. These are a little bit smaller, so I kind of like them for this scale. So I'm going to go both directions with a little gravel road in front of the little fairy garden house. I think that provides a lot of interest. I wanted to add a little greenery behind her and behind the welcome sign to break up all of that grass. So I'm going to use some of this greenery right here from the Dollar Tree. The colors are definitely a different color of green, but I like the variety of the green. This one almost has a fern-like leaf on there. I thought that would be fun and wild to kind of put here on the other side to provide a little bit more interest. And then I want to add some of this baby's breath from the Dollar Tree. Since this is a smaller scale, I am going to cut these down into individual pieces and scatter these around. I do make sure that there is some of the white flowers on each one of these. If not, I cut off the green stems that are just bare. But I'm just going to attach them one by one, dipping them in a little dot of hot glue and gluing those down into the grass. It provides a great option for a tiny flower from the Dollar Tree. And then these are the other baby's breath from the Dollar Tree that are little tiny flowers. They're definitely the smallest flowers I find from the Dollar Tree. I'm always trying to buy small flowers. They just seem to work well for DIYs, and they're a little bit harder to find at most of my Dollar Trees than the larger ones I've noticed. I do the light pink ones, cutting off a small stem and using hot glue to attaching those to the grass, and I'm just scattering those all over. I also have them in this bolder color of pink for some variety. I want it to look like her yard is completely filled with wildflowers, and so I'm going to scatter those around as well. And the two different pink flowers really go with all the pink that I'm going for with the color scheme. I do want to mix in a little purple too, though. I'm going to use a little tiny foam mushrooms from the Easter aisle at the Dollar Tree. And these are the little tiny ones. So there's tiny ones and then there's a little bit bigger one. I'm going to use these lavender ones. I think that's going to look really cute mixed together with the pink. And I'm just cutting off the entire wire from the bottom of these and putting a dot of hot glue on the bottom. I also have these in light pink, so I'm going to add some pink mushrooms as well. Goes great in a fairy garden. You can even put them up on your hill like this for a little bit of fun. And I'm thinking that's looking really good. The only thing I wanted to do was cover up the sides here in the front where you can still see a little bit of that black mat coming through from the grass and a little bit of the black from the front of that dustpan. And so I'm just going to use some reindeer moss and add some moss to the grass, but just here on the front and the sides. It's going to add another piece of greenery, make it a little bit more interesting. And I want to put this back in my landscaping in my yard so it really looks like it is a fairy garden that I built outside and it's part of the greenery and stuff like that. And this was a fun option. So I'm glad that I decided to use the dustpan. I just thought it would be the perfect shape for this and it really turned out well. So again, a little bit of moss here in the front and to cover up here on where you might be able to see some of the black coming through right there on the side. Since this is the front of it, I want that to look the absolute best. I thought maybe just a few more flowers, and I do have some of the lavenders from the Dollar Tree. Since I added the lavender mushrooms, I thought maybe I could add a few lavender flowers too. So I'm just going to cut a couple of these, put a little dot of hot glue on the ends of these, and glue those down into the grass. I'm going to do one on each side. And then I think it just needs a little bit more of the baby's breath, the little white ones, to decorate the front, and maybe one more mushroom. And this is how it turned out. I think it's so sweet. Let me give you a look around this little fairy garden. It is so colorful and fun. And this fairy garden has held up really well outdoors. It has been outside for a year and it looks fantastic. I think the dustpan is a really durable way to build this and really fun creative design that you can sneak anywhere in with your landscaping. Okay, for the next indoor fairy garden, I'm going to show you how to make a fairy garden on a much smaller scale. I picked up this Dollar Tree picture frame. It's got butterflies in it. It's really cute. Check out this frame. It's nice and high, and the wood is really nice looking, and so it doesn't need much. Perfect little base for an indoor fairy garden. I thought I would use another one of these little swings. This one's got a gnome in it, so this one's going to be a little bit more whimsical with a gnome instead of a fairy. But the same little pink tree and the little swing, so cute. You don't have to do anything to it. I'm just going to kind of put mine over to the side like that. And then this is one of the little flower bird baths from the fairy garden section, and with like a lavender flower on top. This is not going to be a very big one, so it's not going to need a lot of pieces. This is another little fairy garden package that I found. It's got like the spigot, a welcome sign, and like a little frog like on a leaf. Super cute. So I'm trying to figure out what would look nice. I'm thinking like the welcome sign and then the little gnome in the swing. And I think that's going to be enough. We can fill the rest of it out with grass and flowers and stuff like that to do a smaller little fairy garden that you could put really anywhere. And again, if you wanted to modify any of these ideas for outdoor ones, you totally could, but we're starting with indoor ones. So I'm going to go ahead and hot glue all of mine down just because I don't want them falling around. This is kind of the setup so far. The gnome swinging in the tree, the bird bath, and a little welcome sign in the front. So again, we're going to be using reindeer moss. This one's kind of like a more green. I always try to save this if I have any extra. So I have lots of different colors and stuff, trying to make it all kind of work together. I'm going to have a path in this one as well. So I'm kind of leaving an area there without any of the reindeer moss. But again, I want it to look like a spring meadow and super cute. For the path, I'm going to be using potting soil again. So I'm going to kind of just scoop some in there in the path. Very easy to do. With the sides, you don't really have to worry about when you go to display it. I could kind of still see a little bit of the butterfly print underneath of it. So I did have to make sure that you know, my moss was pretty thick and kind of covered everything up. Now for the path, I love the look of the little stepping stones made out of the wood slices. So I'm going to use a couple of the little wood slices from the Dollar Tree, and I just kind of push them down until I kind of hit the frame like that, having like the soil go around them. And we can have like a little path going through this fairy garden. Can't do too much with it because it's such a smaller scale. And then I love the look of the little mushrooms. Now, these are the larger ones that came in the package, the little pink and white spotted ones. So again, I'm just going to cut the wire and kind of hook it, standing those up in the moss. They also come in the lavender, of course, and I'm going to use the larger ones for this one too. I used the smaller ones on the earlier fairy gardens, and I'm going to kind of scatter those around. Those work great for fairy gardens, and I'm so glad I found those. For flowers, again, I'm going to be using the little spike white flowers. Those work great because you just kind of have to pull them off. The baby sprouts you kind of have to cut off because they are just attached to the stem itself. So again, I'm going to do like the whites and the pinks. I think that looks so cute for spring. I do like a couple different colors of pink kind of together, but I don't want to overload this fairy garden because it's a little bit smaller. And I think that is just about the right amount of decor. This is how it turned out. Our little spring fairy garden. Very cute. You could use this indoors or outside. Very easy too if you wanted to get little ones involved. And it was pretty inexpensive because I did not need very many items from the Dollar Tree. For this DIY, we're going to do a beach theme. So I picked up one of these clear garden dishes from the Dollar Tree, and I wanted to see if we could do a coastal version of a fairy garden. Now, as you can see, it's not very heavy duty, so I'm going to weigh mine down with some Dollar Tree rocks. It's also going to help to start building it up. So I just kind of do a pile here, and I attach them to the side with hot glue just to try to help keep them in place, gluing them together. Just so I can kind of build it up back there. I want it to look like the sand dune. And then we're going to have our beach using some Dollar Tree tan sand, of course. I'm going to fill that in. You could also use white sand as well, as that's all you can find. And then I found this great tiki bar in the fairy garden section at Dollar Tree. Cute little tiki bar I thought would be perfect for the beach. So I'm just going to put this right here between the rocks and the sand. Of course, it's going to be away from the water a little bit. And now I want to start building up this dune area. I had made it taller back here and weighed it down by using all of the pebbles, but I want it to look green like a sand dune look, so I'm just using reindeer moss and scattering that all over the rocks. You could glue it down if you wanted to. Mine actually stayed in there pretty well, like that. And then I don't really have anything that looks like seagrass from Dollar Tree, but I thought we could kind of get some of that look with like some like fern plant, something that looks very Florida. And so this is one of the garlands. I just took the little fern plants off of it and kind of scattered those around here to kind of make it look like true Florida. If you've ever been to any true Florida places, you know they're very overgrown. And that was the look I was going for. So I also have some Dollar Tree greenery here with some kind of crazy looking plants that I thought would kind of go with that Florida feel. And I'm just going to attach those with hot glue so they'll stand up a little bit better. You probably could glue down your ferns too. I chose to just kind of bury mine down in the pebbles and the sand, but I just kind of scattered a couple of those around. Now for water, I'm actually using the blue sand from the Dollar Tree, and I mixed it together with some of the lighter color to make it a little bit softer. I was trying to decide if I liked that better or the blue pebbles for water. I thought sand would be fun since I was doing a beach theme on this one. Now for the items to decorate this little beach theme fairy garden, I actually got these at the Target dollar spot. Sometimes they do have fairy garden stuff there, and they had beach items, and so I couldn't pass them up. There's a beach umbrella, a beach chair that we're going to use for this one, so I'm going to sit them next to my little tiki bar. Dollar Tree does have versions of those, but probably not quite as big. Hopefully they do get some in this year, though. That would be cool. Then I decided I didn't really like the color of my tiki bar, so I'm going to give it a quick makeover and make it look a little bit more beachy, I guess. Instead of green, I'm going to paint mine this Caribbean blue color, leaving the tiki bar painted and leaving any areas that are okay. I just wanted to kind of change out that dark green vibe that I had there before. Put a little hot glue down to try to help keep this guy from falling over, but I think that looks a little bit better. And then these are some of the Fairy Garden beach items. They have like little sand castles. These are some of the tinier Fairy Garden items. So I put a little sand castle. I put a little beach sign over here next to our beach umbrella and our beach chair. I thought that would be really fun. And then I have a little crab. I have a little pelican. They have these every year, the little beach versions of the little tiny fairy garden items. And so fun if you wanted to do like a beach theme for your fairy garden like this one. I actually made this DIY video for a beach terrarium video because it is kind of a terrarium, but it's also kind of a fairy garden. It's kind of both. And then I have a little bucket here. I was trying to design my beach scene without having too much stuff. I don't want to overcrowd the sand, but I do want some fun beach items that you could find at the beach. I decided to put my pelican back here. I thought that would be cute, having him kind of peeking out of the greenery. And that's when I decided I think I like the blue pebbles more for the water. I just don't think that the blue sand really looks like water that much. And so I'm going to add the blue pebbles just over the blue sand. It's bright. It should stay in place since it's an outdoor fairy garden. And it'll work well with the sand. And I think that looks more like water. I want it to be a little bit curved like that, like the beach would be, but not too much. Isn't this so cute? I love this coastal version of a little fairy garden. I think I originally did this in one of my terrarium videos, but it's definitely a fairy garden as well. And it's definitely one of your all's favorites. So definitely had to include the little beach themed fairy garden in today's video. I don't know about shore living at Dollar Tree yet. It's not looking good. Now for the next one, I wanted to see if I could do a fairy garden in a jar. So I picked up one of these large jars from the Dollar Tree with the metal lids. I love these. They have different sizes. This is one of the tallest ones I think that you can get. I'm just going to simply remove the tag from the bottom. And I got a really cute little fairy garden with a wishing well that I can put inside there. It's going to fill up basically most of it. I'm not going to need any of the other fairy garden line to fill this up. And then I want to add some greenery behind it and some fairy lights so we can light this one up. I was making this one specifically for my back porch, something that I can turn on and off with the fairy garden lights. So I don't want it to move around, so I did hot glue it to the bottom of my jar. Then I'm just going to sprinkle in reindeer moss for the greenery all around. You just have to kind of put it in there because you can't get your hand in there too much for placement, but you can get it along the sides of it. And I like this jar a little bit better than the medium-sized one because it gives me plenty of room for greenery. This is the greenery I'm going to use, the Silver Dollar from Dollar Tree. I really only need one piece of the green to provide a lot of greenery background for her. And I just attach that with a little dot of hot glue right here. And then I want to light it up with fairy garden lights so it is really pretty at night. Now for the florals, I'm using the little tiny pink flowers from the Dollar Tree. They're called baby's breath, but they come in little hot pink or light pink colors. And I'm just cutting them. Again, they will stay together on their own like that. And just putting them in there. I'm not going to glue them in place or anything like that. I'm just going to scatter those around to bring a little bit of spring fun to the moss itself. But the little item that I found there with the little flower wishing well with the fairy is so cute on its own. And then the pink and green that I added to it really added a fun touch. For the fairy garden lights, these are just the regular fairy garden lights from the Dollar Tree. It doesn't matter. I think they're all about the same. I think they all have about 10 LED lights on them. They take the AA batteries, 2 of those. I'm going to add those on there. I buy my batteries in bulk on Amazon, and I find it to be a really good deal, especially if you use them a lot for crafting like I do. I'm going to attach it to the lid of this so I can put the lid on there, and then to turn it on and off, I'll just have to open and shut the lid. Another option you could do is you could leave the battery pack out and not use a lid. There's different options you can use for that, but I did want to put the lid back on mine. Now I just bunch it together. I was trying to figure out the best way to do this. I want it to be pretty during the day, so I only want the lights behind the fairy and the well, but I also want them scattered out in the greenery. So it took me a couple of times to get the fairy lights in there before I get them exactly how I want them. For the battery pack, I'm going to attach it like this so I can still replace the batteries in there. I use a couple pieces of double-sided tape on this and a little hot glue. It's kind of hard to keep these battery packs on the lids. I think the combination of both of them will do the trick. And glue that to the top. There's still plenty of room to be able to use the lid to screw it on there. It doesn't interfere with any of that. So there is a little bit of cord left over, and it's going to move things around on you when you go ahead and try to put that on there. I tried it like that, and I wanted to rearrange it a little bit, and I totally can. So I'm just going to pull them back out, do a little different way where I can just put them in a little bit at a time to get them pretty much where I want them. I'm kind of going back and forth there, behind again. Definitely don't want to do any in the front, but I think I want them in front of the plant so that it's nice and bright when it lights up as well. So again, I attach my lid, and I like that way better. It's giving me the little feel I was looking for with the fairy garden lights. So adding fairy garden lights to your fairy garden can be a really fun idea as well. Now, just to bring a little color into the metal lid, I'm going to add some of the pink spring ribbon with the white flowers on there. This is going to go great with the pink items I have inside. It's not going to interfere with me being able to take the lid on and off of this to turn the light on and off. And I just glue that, gluing it to itself there on the very back of the lid. And let me straighten this out a little bit right there. And I think this little fairy garden is ready to go. Now you could do a smaller scale in one of the mason jars from the Dollar Tree as well. But I really love the little wishing well fairy. I think she's so pretty, so I would suggest doing a large one like this. You can do a big piece in there, and that's so cute. It was so easy to put together as well. It's got like lots of fun uses. You can put it outside. It's not going to get water or anything in it either. You're just going to have to remember to turn it on and turn it off. And I actually displayed this in my Florida room. Really fun and whimsical. I love the fact that she lights up like this. So, a jar can be a perfect thing for a fairy garden as well. A little bit of a terrarium feel to this one, but oh, so cute. The larger pieces like this from the Dollar Tree are some of my favorites to craft with. They are so cute. Now for this DIY, I picked up one of these new spring trays. This is like a letter tray. It's like letter size. And I think it's perfect because it's got this beautiful like floral pattern on it. It's a short tray. It's large. You can do a really big scene. And I'm actually going to use this out in my landscaping. So the first thing I do is just use a nail, and I'm just going to poke holes all over. It does have holes on the side, but I didn't know if that'd be enough drainage for Florida rain. And I wanted to make sure that the water could get out and not sit in this little fairy garden. And I am going to start filling this up. This one's going to be a traditional fairy garden. So I want it to have like a good covering of potting soil here on the bottom, but not too thick. It does have those little handle openings on the side. I want to try to make sure things aren't coming out of those, and I don't really want to cover those up with anything because I want to just leave the plastic tray. And again, these are great to do on a tray because you can move them around in your landscaping. You can move them from yard to yard or for whatever you're doing in your yard. And it might not be warm enough to put these out where you live, so you could start them inside and then take them outside when spring decides to hit. This is the house I chose for this one. I think it's really sweet. It's got some pink flowers growing up the side of it. And I want this one to be very pretty pink and polished for the fairies. And we're going to add fairies to this one. So I put that over to the side. This is one of the trees from the Dollar Tree. Now it is a tree house, and I want it to be more of a tree. So let me show you how I go about converting that. I don't mind it having the little bracket fungi and the face on there. I think that's cute. But I'm going to cover the tree house itself with some reindeer moss, And I kind of wanted to have that feel all over. I was kind of inspired by some of the newer pieces that are covered in moss. And so I'm going to try to do my own here with the reindeer moss and keep going, because I don't want some of it to be ceramic and some of it to be covered with a reindeer moss. I want the entire thing. And so I don't want it to be super thick. Once you get it on there, you can always tear off some of it if it's too thick, so you have a little bit more reindeer moss to work with. And just kind of work one section at a time. We're going to make this really cute tree here for the backyard of this little fairy garden. It took more reindeer moss than I thought it would to cover that, but I think that looks pretty good and pretty covered. Maybe one or two more areas that have a little areas to be patched. And I wanted to make sure you couldn't see any little bald spots. And then I'm going to place that down into the potting soil as well. Again, I want to bury these a little bit in the potting soil. That will help keep them from tipping over when I get this all put together. And then I'm going to use some of these larger fairy garden pieces this year. I wanted to do like a water display on this one, a little bit bigger. And then I wanted to do a sidewalk. So this is a little stone pathway that came in one of those packages that I thought would be perfect to go to the little fairy garden house. And then I decided I wanted a bridge over water. And I was trying to decide whether I wanted to do that in the backyard, but it seemed like it might be a little tight back here, or if I should do it here in the front where it's nice and visible, and I decided to do that. Then for the fairies to sit on, I'm going to have one sit on the bridge, but I wanted the other one to sit on a stump. So I'm going to use one of these wood stems from the Dollar Tree and kind of put that one down here as well. I ended up gluing that down so it's a little bit sturdier for my little fairy to sit on in the backyard. For the water, I'm going to use some of the little blue pebbles from the Dollar Tree. This makes great water for a little fairy garden, because anytime you use like rocks or pebbles, it's going to hold up really well, and they're bright blue like water. So I think that's going to be perfect, and I can put it right there where I want it to go underneath that little bridge. Now it's time for some grass here on this fairy garden. I'm going to use reindeer moss. I'm going to mix it together with some of the green floral moss too to kind of provide a couple different colors, but most of it's going to be the reindeer moss. I find that one works the best. So I just go in the front yard, the backyard, and then I always like to kind of have different zones when I have a bigger tier tray like this. So I want one area to be kind of rocky. So I'm going to do the rocky area over here on the other side of the tree. Just so we have all different kinds of areas in this yard. I want a lot of landscaping. This is the green floral moss. As you can see, it doesn't really stick together like the reindeer moss does, but I like the fact that it provides a little bit more of a foresty green color. And then I'm going to use some of the brown floral moss from the Dollar Tree too. I'm going to use that to make a little path that goes to the backyard from the bridge that's made out of something different than like the little sidewalk to the house. And I thought that that would be a nice change to change up the color of the moss to make a little path to kind of make it look like a little dirt pathway. And then I'm going to continue on with the yard and the reindeer moss until I have all of it covered, just working over here by the rocks, the trees, and the water display. These are so fun to do. You can really get creative. Hopefully you're getting lots of fun ideas today for your fairy garden. I'm even going to have some more creative fairy gardens that you can like even hang on the wall today, so stay tuned. For the sign, I found this great little fairy garden sign. This is one of the newer, bigger items this year. I thought it was really cute, and so it's bright and perfect for the fairies, so I'm going to put that right in front. And now it's time for some greenery and some flowers. This is just some of the Dollar Tree greenery. This is some of the newer greenery that I got there today. Kind of looks like a fern plant. I'm going to use those, just pulling them off and using their stems. Just gives you a little bit of height, a little bit of greenery, really easy, and just working that down into the potting soil. And then, of course, we have to have flowers for our little fairies. So, again, I picked out some small flowers from the Dollar Tree. They have like these little white ones. I'm going to kind of scatter those around. I just cut the stem off about like maybe an inch so that there is enough room to put it down into the potting soil. And then I'm going to put some soft pink flowers as well. And these are a little bit larger, but maybe some yellow ones too. I want it to be really beautiful for the little fairies. And it's so fun. You could even use this for a centerpiece for your table. Really fun. For mushrooms, I picked up these little pink and purple mushrooms from the Easter section at Dollar Tree. These are great for fairy gardens. They come on wire. I'm just going to cut them off, again, leaving a little stem on there that I can kind of bend and work down into the potting soil so they won't fall over. And I'm going to use a combination of pink and purple because those remind me of little fairy colors, and scatter those around the forest as well. As you can see, it's getting lots of different colors and textures, and I absolutely love how this fairy garden turned out. Now, I noticed that sign wanted to fall over a little bit, so to prevent that from falling over, I'm going to use some of the pebbles around it to help it stand up better. And then maybe another piece of greenery back here, and I think it's ready for the little fairies. These are the fairies I got this year. They're the larger ones. One of them has her leg up a little bit, so I think that that one would be really cute sitting on the bridge, like she's touching the water with one of her feet, like that. But she's not going to stay on there, so I use a little hot glue. You could always use some stronger glue. I might have to glue her back on. We'll see. And then I'm going to hot glue this to the little wood stem. I also glue that down for a little to make it sturdier so she doesn't fall off every time the wind blows. But here it is, our little fairy garden. Very traditional. It's actually pretty large. Let me show you all of the fun details. Like even like the fairy garden sign like that has the cute little birds on there that will look really fun for spring. And a tray is a really great way to display these because you can move them around if you change your mind where you want them, or you can relocate them for landscapers and stuff like that. They're really easy to move and it's held up really well.
We are going to be making indoor fairy gardens using these little signs from the Dollar Tree. I chose these because they have a pretty thick frame on them, and 2 square ones are going to look perfectly. I can do 2 fairy gardens and can have it like a path between the 2. So the first step is I'm just going to fill the hole in the frame with a little bit of spackle. The only thing I don't like about these Dollar Tree signs is that the frame is like an unfinished like MDF wood, and so it doesn't look very nice. So I'm gonna paint mine. Another option is you could cover it with moss or something like that. That would be fun too. But I picked up a whole bunch of the new fairy garden items from Dollar Tree and things that I thought would look cute with my spring decor. So the color I'm going to paint mine is this. It's pink polish, and I've been using a lot of pink with my spring decor, and I'm going to use a lot of pink on these 2 fairy gardens, so I thought that would look nice together. It doesn't have to be perfect, and it does soak up a lot of the paint, but I'm just going to use a paintbrush and paint like the very outside and the top of the frame. I don't really have to protect the surface on the bottom or anything like that from getting paint on it because it's going to be all covered with fairy garden stuff. And the frame is just going to provide a great border to kind of keep everything in. I'm actually making these 2 fairy gardens for my dining room. I have a little bit of spring decor from my spring DIY video, and I wanted a little bit more to finish out my cabinet in my dining room. And that is the first one. I just did 1 coat on the very outside. I did go over the very top with like another color or another coat of pink just to kind of brighten it up and make it look a little bit better. And I would suggest definitely painting the frames on those. Now you can be creative on these. You can use anything really with a frame. If you have a piece that you think would work and it doesn't have a frame, you could always like glue the moss and stuff around the edges to kind of provide a little bit of a frame if you're doing an indoor one like this. Today we're going to be doing indoor fairy gardens. And so I just did the same thing here with the second frame, painting it with that pink polish color. I found some really great pieces from the Dollar Tree in the fairy garden section. I went to like 2 Dollar Trees yesterday to kind of see what I could find, and I was pleasantly surprised with all the cute stuff they have. I love the fairy garden stuff like the beach line. I use that a lot in my coastal DIYs, but I don't normally use the regular fairy garden stuff except for in spring. I really love it. Check out this tree I got. It has like pink flowers all over the top. Really cute for $1.25. It's actually painted really nice too. It's got a little butterfly on the front. I thought that would make a really large piece for one of these. I thought that'd be really cute. And I think I'm going to do it over here. I'm actually going to be gluing my pieces down today so that they won't fall over when I move them around, but that's totally optional. I also found this large piece that I thought would coordinate nicely. It is a tree with the pink flowers, and it's got like a little fairy in a swing, and she's swinging. And it actually sits really nice and everything. I thought that would be really cute to do the other one. I want them to be different, but I want them to complete like a scene. And you could even, if you had space, you could even do like 3 of these. I'm going to kind of show you how I put it all together. It turned out so cute. So just trying to kind of figure out exactly where I want those. I also found the little pond with the frog in it, which is so cute. I was thinking about trying to make like a fake pond with like acrylic or paint or something like this, but using these pre-made items from the fairy garden makes everything so easy, and it is so cute. This other little guy's in a boat, so I don't really have anywhere to put him, so I think I'll just use the pond. And I kind of want that towards the front just because it's a little bit of a shorter piece. And time to keep decorating. I want to do about 5 or 6 pieces in each one of these and kind of lay it out like a little scene. So this is a little garden bench. It's super cute as well. It's got a pink flower on it. Some of these also, like this one also has a little bush that I'm going to use like a little bit later on in another DIY. But I thought this was a really cute little bench that we could create a little scene. It's a great source of miniature items for sure if you want to like decorate miniature stuff. Sometimes I do use the fairy garden stuff for tier trays if it's large enough, like, you know, that tree and the bench and the pond and stuff like that. I thought that the bench would be really cute, like overlooking a pond. We could do like a meadow scene over here with the little fairy swinging in the tree. And then we could do like the house setting on the other side. I also found these great little fairy garden bird baths. They're so cute. They have like flower tops. Aren't these so cute? So I'm going to choose the pink one because I'm kind of going with that pink theme. And it's got like a little ladybug on it too, which is super cute. And I think I'm going to use that over on the right fairy garden. Kind of more for like the house. So I've got like the meadow, and then we've got like the little fairy home. And we're going to kind of make it all work together. Now, this piece, I could not find the bridge. I thought that Fairy Garden had a bridge, but I couldn't find it. All I could find was this pathway, but I thought I could make that work as a bridge to connect the 2 fairy gardens together. And it actually worked out pretty well. So I think there is a bridge. I looked at like maybe 3 different Dollar Trees and I couldn't find it. So I went with the path. There's also a little welcome sign that came with that. That looks really cute. It looks like a little like tree wood with like a little welcome sign in there. So I thought that'd be cute here at the front of the house. And it's just kind of seeing what you can find and how you can make it kind of all work together. These pieces were like a little bit larger. They're super cute. There's like this like little live, laugh, love made out of leaves, which is cute. That package also has like a welcome sign in it and like a little lamp post. So it's kind of like playing around with it, kind of like a tier tray, kind of seeing what looks cute to make a scene. There's like a little welcome arrow sign, which is super cute. And again, it's just a matter of kind of playing with it, putting it there, seeing how you like it. Once I get everything laid out exactly the way I want it, we'll glue everything down and then we'll decorate this some more. I wasn't too sure about the lamppost just because it's not painted super well, but I think we can probably use it somewhere. Like maybe over here in the home scene. It's just kind of trying to lay it out in a way that makes sense. I want to have pathways and different stuff like that. They're there too. Now I thought these were cute too. They're a little on the smaller size, but they're like little birds on posts. There's a really cute little wood welcome sign. And I wanted to use a lot of pieces to kind of make it look nice and full. So I thought maybe we could do like the little bird on the post over here, like in the meadow. This cute little welcome sign would look cute next to that little tree house over here. So it's again just a matter of kind of arranging them. And I love how this turned out. It is so fun to DIY. And this would be a great project if you have little ones around that want to get involved. So much creativity. And then finally for the fairies. Now, be careful when you buy these because I went through a couple packages. This packages looked less destroyed, but one of my fairies did still have a broken wing, that one there on the left. I'm going to choose this fairy because she has like a pink dress on. I'll kind of go with the decor. And she's reading a book, and I thought, I will have her hang out over here on this fairy garden because I already have a fairy on the other one, like swinging in the swing. So again, I have them all kind of set. It's just kind of figuring out what's going to make sense. I want a path to come from the front to kind of go to the house. And I want a path to go over to the meadow, to the bench and stuff like that to look at the pond. And I think that looks pretty good. That kind of makes sense. For the grass, I'm going to be using reindeer moss from the Dollar Tree. When you buy this, I do recommend trying to make sure you find one that's kind of wet. It works a lot better today. I used some that wasn't, like, kind of dried out, and I had to wet it a lot, and it was kind of not very, it didn't look great. I thought you could kind of re-wet them a little bit better than, I don't know, I soaked it, and it was really dried out. So I put a little reindeer moss over here in the corner, and then I just hot glue down my cute little swing. And I'm just going to sit the moss in there. Since I have the frame, it all sits in there rather nicely. You can kind of push it down to kind of make it look like a grassy meadow. And there's also, kind of different colors of green. I kind of like, this is one of my favorite colors of the reindeer moss, but sometimes at Dollar Tree, it's kind of whatever you can find. I glued that little live, laugh, love leaf sign down there and then kind of finished out this part of the meadow. And we are going to decorate it more with all kinds of like little spring things. That's going to make it look like a spring meadow. I'm also going to glue down my little bird on my post and my bench. And while I'm at it, I'm going to go ahead and do the pond and the other little bird here in the front. And then I'm going to continue putting moss everywhere, even like under the bench and stuff like that. Anywhere where you can kind of see the wood come through, I'm going to try to fill that in with moss. Now for the path, I thought I would use a different color of moss. I was able to find this floral moss at the Dollar Tree, and it's a little bit more of a brown color. So I thought that would make a really good meadow path. You can also use potting soil for this, and we will be using potting soil for the other side, the other fairy garden right there. And as you can see, I kind of went from the bridge all the way to the bench with that floral moss, and using more than one color like that can really add a little bit of variety. And then I'm going to finish off the rest of it with some more reindeer moss. Again, trying to make sure it's as full as it can be. I want my path to go all the way to the bench, all the way in front of it. And then we can start filling in the other fairy garden over here with moss as well. I just kind of finishing off my layout. I had trouble figuring out where I was going to put the little light post, but I decided to put it back here in the back. And our little fairy reading a book can be right about here. Her little flower house with her welcome sign. And again, I'm only hot gluing my stuff down because I want to be able to move it around without everything tipping over or falling over. This is going to be an indoor one, but you could also do this one as an outdoor one too, depending on what you put it in. Now here is some more reindeer moss. I'm going to start spreading that around. On this one, I'm going to do like a mossy meadow everywhere, but I am also going to have a path to go over to the pond and stuff like that. And I'm also going to have a path that goes to the house. So I'm not going to need as much reindeer moss on this side, but I do want like the backyard and the front yard mostly to be covered in it. I like to kind of break it apart into smaller pieces and kind of push it down to kind of make it look like a grassy field. I don't want it to be super tall, just about the same as like the border of frame of the picture frame. So again, I'm going to use some of that brown floral moss for this path. That's going to go over to like the little meadow there, make a little scene. And I left a path with no moss so that I could fill it up with soil. So I was also able to find potting soil at the Dollar Tree, which is a great find. And I'm going to go ahead and just start spooning or cupping some of this in here. I don't want to make too big of a mess with the potting soil, but I just want enough that I can create a little path. Now for the bridge, I'm also going to glue it down, but I'm only going to glue it to one side. That way I can move the two different fairy gardens independently, but I don't really want it to be falling off. So I just glued it to the frame itself. And then for the path going up to the house, I'm going to use some of the little wood slices from the Dollar Tree. They're just little cut pieces of wood, and they work great for little tiny stepping stones. And so I'm going to kind of push those down into the potting soil over here to provide a perfect little fairy garden path. That is a great use for those. And then check out the mushrooms they have in the Easter section this year. They come in pastel colors and they're so cute. They're little foam mushrooms. They come in two different sizes. These are the mini ones. So at first I'm going to start with the pink with the white spots. I'm cutting the wire but leaving it on about 1 inch or so I can kind of hook it and push it down into the moss. And that's going to help it stand up. You can see it through the moss and everything like that. It makes it tall enough. And the hook kind of keeps it in place. So I'm just going to scatter little pink mushrooms around. I wanted to use the pink ones because, of course, I'm going with the pink theme for this section of my kitchen with my spring. And then finding small flowers at the Dollar Tree. Sometimes it can be a little difficult. These are called spike, and they have these little tiny white flowers that are pretty small. I always wish that Dollar Tree had a smaller flower variety because I do struggle finding flowers small enough there to use on little miniature projects like this. But I scattered around some white. And then for soft pink, this is called Baby's Breath, and they're pretty small too. So I'm going to just kind of scatter those around too. These are like, they don't really have a flower center. They have little tabs on there to keep everything together. And some of mine were not doubled up. So make sure they're doubled up. They look a lot better when there's like two flowers, one on top of each other. So I scattered some soft pink around. And then I also found like a brighter pink of the Baby's Breath at the Dollar Tree. And I'm just cutting off like a 1/2 inch to 1 inch of the stem and just pushing that down into the moss. And it'll help it stand up. I also found the little mushrooms from the Easter aisle in lavender. And so I thought that would go nicely with the pink. So I'm going to use some of the smaller ones on those as well. And I'm just cutting the wire. The wire is pretty easy to cut, about 1 inch, hooking it. I'm going to scatter those around kind of next to my pink ones to provide a little bit of variety in color and just a little bit more decor. And this is how it turned out, my 2 indoor spring fairy gardens. This is the meadow over there with the little fairy in the swing, the little path to the bench overlooking like a little pond with a frog in it. Super cute. And then you can take the little bridge over to the little fairy garden house. We have the little pink flower house with the little fairy reading a book over in the corner. Little bird bath in front, cute little path, and you can just get really creative with your fairy garden.
And you can do as many of these as you want, just connecting them with the little sidewalks or bridges for a really fun look. I'm going to use this metal tray. I actually got this at the Target Dollar Spot for $5. Just galvanized metal, regular tray. There's so many different things you can use for a fairy garden, but I love ones on trays because you can have them indoor, outdoor. Even if they're outdoor, they're easy to move around if you have to mow or something like that. So the first thing I do is just fill it up with some potting soil just a little bit here in the bottom. And then I'm going to start filling it with items. This is the house we're going to use. It's one of the new houses from the Dollar Tree that has the moss already on the roof. It's bright and colorful, and that is what I was going for this little fairy garden. They also have these great fairy garden items this year that are really a lot larger than ones that I've seen there in the past, like the little rivers like this and the bridges, and even the gnomes as well. I like doing the miniature, but I also like doing the larger version of the fairy gardens like this. I'm just going to put two of those together to make like a little river in this fairy garden. And then we can even do like one of the little stone bridges here to go over it. And that will hide the gap between the two. I can even angle it a little bit so it goes a little bit more off the tray. And then I want the little house like right over here. Now, I went to my Dollar Tree and they didn't have any potting soil, but they usually do get it in stock. I usually try to buy it there, at least for fairy gardens. Now for the little gnomes, I found these great little gnomes. This one's riding a snail. It's so cute. It says happy. So I love him. I'm going to put him right here in front. And then they also have like the little individual gnomes like this that are a little bit bigger. I think I'll go with the red one just because I was going for bright and colorful in this fairy garden. Now, I didn't poke any holes in the bottom of this fairy garden. I'm going to use it on the tray next to my front door so it won't get any like rain or anything there. So I don't think it's going to need drainage. And then for some items to decorate it, they have these little mushrooms that come in the packages as well. I have two of them, and I also have like one of their little garden fences. They have such a great selection of fairy garden stuff at my stores. I was so excited to start making some fairy garden DIYs. So kind of arranging it so you can see both of the gnomes from the front. And then I also want to do like some little stepping stones. I'm just going to use the Dollar Tree wood stems for this. They're a little taller than I'd like, but I'm going to bury them down into the potting soil. And then I'm going to be adding the grass and all the different stuff on top, so they won't be too tall and they'll kind of just go to the bottom of the tray. For the grass itself, I like to use the Dollar Tree reindeer moss. I have been making so many crafts with this stuff lately. I just absolutely love crafting with it. And I think it gives you that bright green look of a yard, but it's also kind of crazy looking, like a forest that you would think it would be here in this little fairy garden. I guess this is more of a gnome garden, huh? We are going to have some fairy gardens later on, though. And so I just kind of go around everything I've already placed. I like putting the items down in the potting soil so they're less likely to fall over, but I want to cover up most of the potting soil down there and cover it up with this, working my way around the little river over here as well. And I kind of like that. It looks like I have a couple different colors of green on that reindeer moss. I like the variety. Now we're going to decorate it with some little garden pests. I have some of these little wooden ladybug stickers from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to put one on the sign. We can scatter some around in the moss as well. Super cute, and they're bright red, so that's very colorful. I also have some of these little wooden bees. I actually bought these on Amazon because I couldn't find any at Dollar Tree, and I used all of mine up that I had at Dollar Tree, but they're pretty much the same thing. They're a little smaller. They're little bees, and I'm going to put some, just scatter those around like I did the ladybug. I did one like kind of climbing on the little toadstool there in front. And of course we need some flowers because I wanted to look fun for spring. So I try to get some of the smallest flowers they have at Dollar Tree. I don't want to do like pinks and purples on this one. I was going for a bright color. So we're going to do yellow flowers. I think that will look nice. And then maybe some of the white ones here too. Not too much. I don't want it to overpower all of the other fun items that the gnomes have going on here in their little garden. One more little bumblebee on top of the roof there. It had a little bit of a bald spot there on the moss-covered roof. And one more flower, and I think this one is ready to go. So much fun to craft fairy gardens. If you have some kids around, it would be really fun to get them involved. They'll come up with lots of great ideas. And I like to kind of have a theme when I go into a fairy garden like this. The theme for this one was gnomes. I think it's so colorful and fun. And you can use some unexpected items. This was just a tray from the Target dollar spot, but it worked really well for this. Now for this DIY, I decided to do a fairy garden tier tray. I thought it would make sense, right? I'm using my wood tier tray I got on Amazon, and for filler, I'm going to use reindeer moss and some of their floral moss just to mix up the greenery a little bit. And I'm going to use that all over both tiers. You could definitely use a round tier tray for this as well. I really prefer my rectangular ones like this. They just work well for the furniture I have in my house. They work well to hide like in the kitchen on the counter without taking up too much space. And on my entryway table, lots of different areas where I put tier trays in my home. They just fit really well for that. So I spread the reindeer moss out, and then I add little clumps of the floral moss as well, just to break up some of the green and add a little variety. And I'm going to be doing that on the bottom tier as well. I do want to also add a little ladder. I thought it'd be really fun to do a little rope ladder where the gnomes could go up and down the ladders from each tier tray, right? Top to bottom, bottom to top. So I just cut a piece of twine that's about the right length, and I doubled that up. I cut 2 of them that length. For the ladder rungs, I'm going to use the Dollar Tree wood dowels. It's a nice small size. These are going to be easy to stain. I just take 3 of them, a makeup sponge, and some antique wax by Waverly. Give those a quick stain just to make them look a little bit more interesting. And then we'll cut these down to size. I thought it would be easier to stain it before I cut them, so I only have to stain 3 pieces of them. And I'm just going to put it together. Like, it kind of reminds me of the little ladders you see like in bird cages and pet cages and stuff like that, right? That's what I was looking for. But I just want to do a really decorational one. I'm not going to tie them. I'm just going to attach all of these with hot glue so it looks like a little ladder. And I cut them basically into thirds. There was a small piece I was cutting off the end because I was using one as reference to make sure that I did them all about the same length. And I just cut those down with my miter scissors. I got those miter scissors on Amazon. I really love them for crafting. They work really well for items like this without having to get the saw out. I just start at the bottom of my twine, adding a tiny dot of hot glue here to both sides and laying my little wood dowel right on top to make a ladder. I'm not measuring them. I'm just trying to estimate. It doesn't have to be perfect. I just want it to look like a fun little rustic ladder that would look cute on a fairy garden. This is really the only DIY I had to make for this tier tray using the fairy garden items from the Dollar Tree. They're so cute on their own. You don't have to do a lot to them. I leave a little extra twine there at the top to be able to attach that to my top tier. And I also try to clean up some of the hot glue. My hot glue gun does spit out quite a bit of hot glue to make that look a little bit better. And then I'm going to have it go like this, just on one side like this. I'm going to use a couple of dots of hot glue on the twine there at the top and have that go over that top tier, just tacking them on there really easily, having it free hanging like that down onto the bottom tier. And I thought that would be a fun touch for Little Fairy Garden. And then down here, we're going to again spread out that reindeer moss all over, mixed together with the floral moss to give us a great start to decorate this. I find it a little bit easier to put the moss in first and then add all the pieces to it. And I like the variety of color I got down there with the different reindeer mosses as well. Now for the first item we're going to use is the little tree house. It looks like a tree and it's nice and small. The color scheme is perfect. I'm going to put this here towards the back. For the top tier, I'm using some of the smaller gnomes from the Dollar Tree. They have some really large ones you'll see I'm going to use on the bottom, but I use the smaller ones here on top. This one says welcome. He's riding a turtle. He's so cute. He has a little mushroom as well. I just give his beard a little touch up there with a paint pen to make him look a little bit better. I do have to touch up a couple of these items, which is expected using items from the Dollar Tree, but he's so cute. I'm going to put him right there in front. The next gnomes I'm using are sitting on a little wood log, super cute. It's a couple of his and her gnome, and it comes with a little mushroom as well from the Dollar Tree. I thought this would be a really cute piece as well for the front. My camera was having a hard time focusing on them. See how cute they are? Sitting right next to each other with their little gnome hats on. I'm going to put those here on the other side, here in the front. They look great down into the moss like that. And then for the next item, I want to do a table and chairs. This one has a flower table that I can use for that. And it also has a birdhouse that I'm going to use in just a minute on the top tier. I think it's really cute. It looks like a wooden birdhouse. I'm going to do the table back here behind them, little flower table. nesting that into the moss. And then for the chair, I'm going to use a butterfly chair from the Dollar Tree for the fairies. I'm not going to have anybody sitting in it, but I thought it'd be great for a table chair combo here towards the back. And I don't know if you believe in spirits or not, but my camera just captured an orb going across the screen, and I did see it in real time, so it did make me pause. Let me show it to you real quick. Isn't that wild? And I thought I was alone. So I put the little birdhouse right there in the front. Everything is the perfect scale for this. I'm going to rearrange my moss a little bit to make it look a little bit better. And I think that that is looking really cute. And I'm going to scatter a few of the mushrooms here too from those packs, since it's a little bit smaller scale up here on the top of our tier tray. Now for the bottom, I wanted to do one of the freestanding doors from the Fairy Garden section. They're so cute this year. I really love this blue one. And I'm going to put that against the pole here in the middle. And there was another orb just there. I didn't know this was going to be such a paranormal type video. Ooh, maybe they are fairies. I had put that on there, and then these are the larger gnomes that I saw from the Dollar Tree. This one's holding like a little flower to feed the birds. I thought about even putting a little bit of bird seed in there. I thought that'd be cute. I'm just going to touch up his flower a little bit here with the paint pen. He doesn't need much. I love his leafy hat, and he is going to be a great scale. Since that door is really big, I'm going to put him here towards the front, to the side of the ladder a little bit. And I think he's going to be really cute. I did find 2 gnomes this size from the Dollar Tree. This is the other one that's got a mossy hat, which I love. The only problem is they got a little bit of the moss on the flowers too. So I'm just going to touch those up real quick with some paint pens just to make them look a little bit better. Just painting directly over that mossy material that was on there. And its hands and nose were really skinned up as well. So I'm just going to use some ivory paint here, just something I had, and a tiny paintbrush, and touch him up a little bit just to make him look a little bit better. He had a lot of green coming through on that, which didn't really make sense. And touch up his beard a little bit too with some white, just to make him look his very best. He's so cute. I'm going to use him towards the front too so you can see him well. The largest ones towards the front. And then I want to do a couple houses for them. Now, they don't have houses to scale for that size gnome, but I found this one that looks like a tree with like the banana leaves all over the top. And I'm thinking they will look like houses in the distance, right? Because they're in the back, which would make more sense since they are smaller than the scale of everything else down here. But I want to put a little bit off to the side so you can still see it behind that big gnome. And then this is the house I chose for the other side. It's one of the white mushroom houses with the moss on top. Mine was chipped up a little bit, so I'm going to touch it up with a paint pen and a Sharpie just to add a little bit of fun to it. I didn't realize the moss was kind of chipped on that one, but it'll work. That'll be another little house we can put here towards the back. Again, offsetting it a little bit so you can still see it from the front of the tier tray. And then I want to do a path to the door. I'm going to use the bath salt from the Dollar Tree for gravel. So I just make a little path here in the reindeer moss where I can sprinkle that in there. Just going to add another little texture, decor, and make sense. Pebbles going to the door. And since this is a larger scale down here, I felt like I needed less fairy garden items because they're all larger. But I do want spring flowers. So I'm going to be using the light pink and the pink baby's breath and some of the yellow wildflowers as well. I'm just cutting them into little pieces here. They stay on there perfectly fine. And I want a variety of the 2 different kinds of pink together, but also some of the yellow, which I can just pull off. It's just going to make it more interesting. And I think that's going to be enough for both tiers. I just take these and start putting those down into the moss. I'm not going to glue them down or anything. I want to be able to reuse this moss for other crafting because I used so much of it, and just scatter those all around. Isn't this such a fun theme for a spring tier tray? I really like it. You could definitely use it outdoors if you wanted, if you have like a porch or area that's covered, but I think I'm going to be using mine indoor for a spring tiered tray. I like the 2 different colors of pink and the yellow mixed together. And basically anywhere where there was a little bit of too much green, I added some flowers to break it up. And we're going to do the same thing up here on the top tier, where all of our little smaller gnomes are living. And using the gnomes for a fairy garden is really fun. They're so cute. I really love the table and chair on that as well. Let me give you a look around our little tier tray to show you all the fun details that we added. And this is such a fun theme for spring. It was such an easy DIY using the little fairy garden items for a tier tray because they're just the right size. But look how absolutely adorable this turned out. I like that I used some of the larger items at the bottom for scale, some of the smaller items at the top. But it's kind of a no-brainer for a spring or a summer tier tray. This one's very versatile. You could leave it out for a long time, and that's always fun if you have a good place to display a tier tray in your home. Isn't that so cute? I really love the moss-covered houses and the moss-covered gnomes. For this fairy garden, we're going to be using one of the little roller trays that you put underneath your flower pots from the Dollar Tree. And I thought this would be perfect for a fairy garden because it's short, flat. I love that it's round. And this worked really well. You can do this indoor, outdoors. It works really well for outdoors and your landscaping. And you can leave it the colors they are, but I wanted to kind of make mine a little bit more colorful. So I'll show you what I ended up doing. I was going for a little bit of a turquoise salmon look. And so I decided to just paint around the inside here where you're going to be able to see it and on the top of the rim of this with a light blue color. I just mixed like some, I think it was Caribbean blue and white together to give me like a light blue color. I think that's so pretty. I don't have to do the very bottom of the tray. I wanted something to kind of match this like gnome, right? And I'm going to use that little gnome for this DIY, so I might as well make them match. Perfect. I decided just to go ahead and give this little guy a makeover too. This is just one of the ceramic gnomes from the Dollar Tree. It's pretty plain, doesn't have anything on it, but I thought it would be really cute in this little fairy garden. So I'm just going to paint his hat. That way they match perfectly. You probably didn't have to, but this was just me being extra. And I want to leave his little beard and nose alone. I think he's super cute. And then I want the underside to be a different color. So that's where the salmon color comes in. So I'm just using a salmon acrylic and I'm going to go around the outside of this. I wasn't sure how well it would paint pink like this being a dark green color, but it seemed to work pretty well. And they do have these trays in all different colors. They have them in like the spring and garden section at the front of the store, at least at my stores. And I just go around the underside. That way it's like a two-toned little tier tray, and I think it turned out really cute. Just making sure I got all of the green covered on that, and I did have to go over it here with another coat to cover up that dark green. But I think it's so bright and cheerful for spring. It's definitely one of my favorite color combinations that I do for spring. See how it's two-tone now? Very cute. And now we can start making this into a fairy garden. I'm going to start with some potting soil. I was desperate times call for desperate measures. I had a pot full of potting soil, so I decided to use that just to kind of get rid of it. And I'm just going to kind of scatter that around. It doesn't really matter if it's the best potting soil. Just to fill it up. You don't even have to have soil at all if you don't want to. You could always use pebbles or something like that if you wanted to. This was extremely dry. It had been sitting in that pot for a while, so I'm going to wet mine a little bit to make it a little bit easier to work with. And now it's time for some reindeer moss. I love using this for fairy gardens. I think it makes perfect grass, so I'm just going to kind of sprinkle this all over the potting soil here, and then we can get to decorating this one. I have so many little fun areas on this. I want it to be really full and lush as a little fairy garden. I guess more of a gnome garden because I'm going to be putting a gnome in this one. And some of that reindeer moss that I had was a little bit dried out, but I think it's going to work. This is the house that I chose. It's one of the little mushroom houses from the fairy garden section at the Dollar Tree, and it is green. So I want this to be very colorful. I've already got the pink and the light blue, so I thought green would be another fun color. And I'm going to put that right there where like the dirt is towards the front, and We have all of the reindeer moss kind of circling around it like that. Isn't that so cute? It's got a little pink flower on the door. You could also take just their ceramic mushrooms like that and draw a little door on them, but they have so many fun options. And then I wanted some of the larger mushrooms from the Dollar Tree Fairy Garden section. I think these are really cool. They're pretty big. And that gnome is pretty big. So I wanted them to be on a little bit larger scale so they would match. And then I'm going to use some of these wood slices. These are a little different than the wood stems from the Dollar Tree, and they're because they're flatter. And they're a little hard to find at Dollar Tree though. But you could also use the wood stems as well. I'm just going to do a little path here, kind of curved off to the side. And I think 4 of those is going to be fine, kind of putting that down into the potting soil. Our gnome is going to be over here. He is a little large for his house, but that's okay. They don't have to be to scale. And then these bright colored mushrooms I think are so cute. We have a yellow one, a red one. The light blue one really matches everything well, and they have little polka dots on them, so they're super cute. And then I'm going to add some stones. These are more of the white and gray looking stones from the Dollar Tree. And I'm just going to have like a little stony area over here. I do like to try to mix up the different areas in the landscape of my little fairy gardens. So I just do like a little pile of rocks right over here. And maybe some over here to kind of make it look like a little bit of landscaping has been done on this little fairy garden house. And it kind of breaks up the transition between the moss and the dirt in the front. These are some of the wood stems from the Dollar Tree that are some of the skinnier ones. Whenever I buy these at the Dollar Tree, they're either really skinny like this or they're really chunky like some of the other ones I've used. These are going to look just like some broken down sticks, which I kind of love for the little forest feel. So I'm just going to put some of those in there as well for a little bit of fun. I actually got those at Goodwill for like the same price you can find them at the Dollar Tree, but sometimes you can't find them at the Dollar Tree. Now for greenery, I have like some Dollar Tree foliage. This is like a real ferny looking plant. And so I'm just going to cut off some of those leaves and start building up the back of this fairy garden. And I want it to be really colorful for spring, so I'm also going to add lots of flowers to it as well. But this is going to give a lot of height back there since I don't really have any trees or anything like that. And then the little tiny flowers from Dollar Tree. I'm using like the light pink ones, the white ones, some of the ones that are pink, white, and yellow. Just all the colorful ones. And I can have some in the potting soil as well. And a few more little fern-like plants. I think they're really cute. This might have been one of my first fairy gardens that I did here on my channel. I really love how it turned out. The little rolly planter stand is perfect for a tier tray. It's just the right shape. I love the fact that it's really easy to move around, just like a tray. You can even kind of wheel it around on the little wheels on the bottom. But I love the blue color. It's kind of a fun surprise on this one. Now, since we did an Easter theme, I wanted to try to do an easy St. Patrick's Day theme as well. These are the little shamrock trays from the Dollar Tree this year. They're plastic bowls, and I thought they'd make a cute little fairy garden. You can put some holes in the bottom if you are going to need drainage on yours. I'm going to sit this one near my front door, so I don't think I'm going to need drainage on it. I just put a little potting soil in the bottom. This is the house I chose for this one. It's got the green mossy roof. It's one of the newer fairy garden houses this year. And I'm going to put that right in the middle. It takes up a lot of space, but I still have enough room here in the clover to fill this up and to decorate it. For the grass, I'm using the reindeer moss, and I'm just going to fill up each one of those leaves of the clover. And for the greenery, I'm going to use the actual clover plants that they have from the Dollar Tree. I thought that would be fun. Now, this is kind of a smaller scale, so the stepping stones can be a little smaller. I'm just using those Dollar Tree stones and trying to find some of the flatter ones to do like 3 of them as like stepping stones as a pathway to the front door of this little fairy garden house. And just enough of the reindeer moss to kind of cover everything. Kind of looks cool because, of course, the clover should be green anyway. And these clovers are kind of big for this miniature scale fairy garden, but that's okay. I'm just going to use one in each one of the petals here for a little bit of greenery to add to that St. Patrick's Day vibe. I thought a rainbow would be really fun, and I found a rainbow sticker from the Dollar Tree, and I was trying to decide how I could use this. It's kind of a metallic sticker. So what I decided to do was cut it a little bit and peel the plastic backing off of it that's sticky. And that's just gonna leave me with like a little thin metal rainbow that I thought would be perfect for this. And I want to kind of make it look like the end of the rainbow is the little fairy garden house. So I was trying to decide how to do it. I think I can attach it right here. And then from the front, it'll look like the rainbow like ends at the house. So I just attached it to the side of the bowl with a little bit of hot glue. Gotta have a rainbow here with the St. Patrick's Day theme. And then I also wanted some gold. So I'm going to use some of these gold coins. These are from the St. Patrick's Day confetti. They come in this multi-pack like this, and I've used these for a previous DIY. I think they're so cool. I'm going to use some of the bigger ones and some of the little ones and just scatter the gold coins all around. It's really going to give you that St. Patrick's Day vibe. And you wouldn't have to use, like a shaped container like this. You could take any fairy garden like this and dress it up for the holiday. And I think it's just a really fun idea. And it was so easy to put together. And you guys know I love decorating for every holiday. I definitely decorate for St. Patrick's Day as well. It's a holiday that some people forget to decorate for, but it definitely makes me happy. And I do have a St. Patrick's DIY video out on my channel right now, and I'm almost fully recovered from my little e-bike accident, so hopefully I'll get some new DIYs to you very soon.
Now, you can use just about anything for a fairy garden. I'm going to show you how I use this little Seagrass mini tier tray from the Target dollar spot for a fairy garden. I'm going to make the bottom of mine look like a fairy garden. I thought that'd be fun for a cute little spring tier tray. So I'm going to take some reindeer moss and just scatter that around the bottom tier. I love this tier tray. I picked this up at Target dollar spot last year for $5. I think they bring these back from time to time. Keep your eye open for these. These are so cute. And just the right size for a small tier tray. And again, I'm going to use some of the spring items from the Dollar Tree. This is the large mushroom. I kind of like the green color. I think that's really cute. I kind of want to make it look like a little fairy house though. So I'm just going to paint like a little door on it. Nothing crazy, just like a little rounded top door. And I'm going to do pink to make it look nice and springy. So I just used a pink paint pen and just drew a little door on to the front. I thought that the green color on the top of the mushroom was really nice. So I'm going to leave that color. And then I'm going to kind of outline it here with just a white paint pen, kind of clean it up a little bit, give a little border around my door. And then I can also use that to do like a little fairy doorknob on the front. I'm not going to do any windows or anything like that. I just wanted something simple, kind of like a little door. And this is the perfect size little fairy garden house. You could also use one of the little mushroom houses that are already kind of a fairy garden decor, but I kind of wanted to use this one. I thought it was cute. So I'm going to kind of nestle that in the moss here at the bottom of my tier tray. And if you had like a flat basket tray or anything like that, you could also do a fairy garden in it. It would be really cute. I love this little bench. So I bought another one of these. This is the little wood bench with the pink flower on it. We're going to sit that over here in our little fairy garden there at the bottom. And then I found these. I thought these were so cute, little stepping stones with words on them. Aren't these so cute? They say different things like love garden, sweet home, enjoy time. I'm going to do the love garden and kind of like lay one here towards the front of my little fairy garden. I'm going to decorate the top of it with some really cute items I found at the Target dollar spot, but the bottom is definitely a little fairy garden. For the path, I used the floral moss from the Dollar Tree just because it's a little bit more brown. I don't really want to be doing any soil or anything like that in my nice little tier tray. I don't want it to stain it. For flowers, I'm going to use some of the pink baby's breath, just cutting those down and kind of nestling those into the reindeer moss. I know it's a little hard to see here at this angle, but I will show you how everything kind of came together. I'm also going to scatter some of the lighter pink baby's breath around like that. And there is our little fairy garden scene down there. Really easy to put together. I thought a few mushrooms would be cute too. So I have some of the larger pink and white mushrooms. And since I'm doing a lot of pink on this one, I thought I would scatter a few of those as well. Hooking the wire and putting those down into the reindeer moss. I think that's plenty. Now check out these great items I found at the Target dollar spot. They're only $1. They have these little like mint green garden boots, which are so cute and just the right size for a small tier tray like this. I'm going to put that on the very top. And they have these little watering cans, so cute. Dollar Tree has something similar on a stake that you can take off, but these are kind of ready to go. This one's a little bit smaller too. And again, only $1, so cheaper than the Dollar Tree. I didn't really care for the green and white gingham bow on there, so I just pulled mine off. And I'm going to sit that next to my little garden boots over here. And then for the final item, they have these little flower pots for $1 at the spring section at Dollar Tree. And so cute. Some little white and yellow flowers to finish off the top of the tier tray. I thought about putting a little moss on the top too, but I decided I didn't really need it.
So the top is more of a spring garden feel, but the bottom is more of a fairy garden. I love this little tiny seagrass like tier tray. I think it's so cute. And it's so easy to even take one of their like little mushrooms like that and make it into a little fairy garden house if you can't find one that you like at your Dollar Tree. Really fun and whimsical. I love like the spring garden theme every year. It's a great way to get you ready for spring. So let me show you around this little tier tray. Kind of a miniature version of what we did before with the larger one, but still super cute. And this looked great in my entryway.
Now for the next fairy garden, we're going to be making it in one of these little terrarium planters from the Dollar Tree. So you could make this a hanging one if you wanted. You could hang it from the top. I'm going to have mine be standing, but I thought it'd be a perfect home for one of these larger fairies from the fairy garden. She is like sitting like on a log, and I thought she'd be the perfect piece to add to that little terrarium. Not so sure about the other little flower on the log. I don't think that's really going to work. I think one major piece will work good in here, and then we can decorate the rest of it to look like a little fairy garden. And now she kind of sat a little low. I didn't know if you'd be able to see her too well, so I decided to boost her up with one of those little wood stems from the Dollar Tree. But it would probably work without, but I have these handy, so I'm going to go ahead and glue one of the wood stems down, wood slices down, and then I'm going to attach her like right on top. I thought that looked good. You could see her really well like that. So I'm going to then hot glue the fairy to the base. And you can see her really nicely through the opening in the front of the terrarium. This one was such an easy little terrarium to put together, and it turned out so cute. Now I decided I didn't really have room for any of the larger pieces, so we're going to go ahead and straight into the moss for the meadow. And I'm just going to kind of fill in the area around her. You know, it's a spherical surface, but just kind of anywhere where I think that there would be grass, I'm going to put some of that reindeer moss and just kind of fill it in. And then we can decorate the meadow for the fairy garden and give it that fairy garden look. This is a great way to add a little spring fairy garden vibe if you only have a small amount of space to decorate. And you could sit this anywhere, like kitchens, bathrooms, wherever. It's kind of all self-enclosed. Now to decorate it, I'm going to use some of the lavender foam mushrooms from the Easter aisle. And we're going to use the tiny ones because this is kind of a small scale one. And again, I'm just cutting like about an inch of wire, kind of hooking it and putting that down into the moss to make it stand up. For pink flowers, I'm going to use like the hot pink baby's breath from the Dollar Tree. Cut one of those. We'll do like the soft pink baby's breath as well. Just cutting that stem off and putting one of those here in the front. Now to display it, I'm going to use one of these glass candle holders from the Dollar Tree. I thought this would look nice. It's going to boost it up, kind of make it look like it's on a pedestal. Again, you could hang it if you had a place to hang that. It'd be look cute hanging on a porch as well. And I'm going to use a combination of the E6000 and a little bit of hot glue. just because glass is a little bit harder to hot glue for a permanent bond. And I'm going to just go ahead and sit that right on top, trying to let my glue set up a little bit. Now to add a little color to the top, I'm going to use some of that spring ribbon from the Dollar Tree, the pink with the white flowers, and I just thread that through the top and just a simple knot. I'm going to let like the ribbon kind of hang down, kind of cascade down the sides of the terrarium. And I just want like the white flower to be up. I just trim the sides, no crazy bow or anything like that. I just wanted a little pop of color and texture on the top of this little fairy garden. And this is how she turned out. I think she's so cute. And how easy was that to put together?
So this one's a fun reminder that it doesn't really matter the size. You can do a fairy garden super small like this, still get a fun impact. I love this one that you can display it like with a little candle holder at the bottom. And mixing glass and plastic, you know, they look the same, and it's a really fun way to DIY a tiny little fairy garden. I really hope you enjoyed these 20 Fairy Garden Dollar Tree DIYs. I love this animation of the fairy going into my actual little fairy garden house. So fun. And let me know which fairy garden was your favorite down in the comments below, or just come say hello and enjoy the final reveal.
Just close your eyes and let them rest. I know it's hard to fall asleep, but do your best. 'Cause there's a place that I go to when I wanna hide from all the shades of blue. 'Cause at times I think of leaving, my mind takes me back to fall, when the snow begins to sing goodnight to warm. But I will never leave your side. You're the reason to all my pride. Never wither and runs dry, and your roses are my guides. Goodbye, my friend. Our love remains, but not this way. I'm in your garden as a day. Just feel the wind. If you look close, you see the lilies dance and how they slowly grow. I'm counting years as they go by. Now all the lilies gone and days is brought to life. 'Cause at times I think of leaving, my mind takes me back to fall, when the snow begins to sing goodnight to warm. But I will never leave your side. You're the reason to all my pride. Never wither and runs dry, and your roses are my guides. Goodbye, my friend. Our love remains, but not this way. like a dream. You and I standing wild and free, with petals so golden, the sun's warm kiss, a love so strong, a bliss. Whispers of the breeze, secrets unfold. It's you that I need, it's you that I want. When the world gets cold, it's you and me. When the sun comes back, you'll see. Oh, dandelion, the strength that you've shown, stronger each year. Look how we hold on through the toughest of times. We still stand strong. Through pavement we will grow. Forever we will grow. Deep within your eyes, I found a home. The love that we share can never grow. In your gaze, the world looks bright, forever by your side. This town is quiet, serene and wide. You keep me warm and safe at night. No matter the season, we always bloom, 'cause you.
Thank you so much for making it all the way to the end of our spring fairy garden crafting marathon. Some of my favorite DIYs. I wanted to bring them all to you, so I hope you enjoyed today's video. I also want to thank my YouTube members for supporting my channel. Thank you to Jamie Job, Janae Farrington, Pamelia Wren, Donna Schreiner, I Am Mojo Jojo, Marin Christensen, Adrian Brolt, Debbie Middleton, Red Mama, Powell Puppy Life, Renee Albanese, Jenny, Debbie Austin, James Osborne, and Lizette Thomas. Thank you so much for your support. And if you join the membership, you're going to get early ad-free access to my content here on YouTube. A really fun perk. Now, would you like more spring crafting inspiration? Be sure to check out one of these videos right here. And until next time, happy crafting those fairy gardens.